Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Everett Hoffman, and today we're going to talk about ISO basics and some general rules to follow when using your camera's ISO. First things first, what is an ISO? An ISO is the measurement of sensitivity to your camera's image sensor, specifically in light. Every modern day camera has an image sensor. And the image sensor is essentially the brain of the camera. And that brain works a lot like how our brain works in relation to our eyes. Our eyes see images, and our brain interprets those images. So a camera's lens lets light in, that light hits the image sensor, and the image sensor interprets the light value. The ISO allows us to turn up and turn down the image sensor's sensitivity to that light. And that's done on a number scale. So the lower the number, the least amount of sensitive your image sensor is going to be. The higher the number, the more sensitive your image sensor is going to be. So if you're outside and there's a lot of light, you're gonna have to turn that ISO way down to 100 so you can get a decent exposure on your sensor. But if you're inside and you don't have access to a lot of light, then you need to push your ISO number up a little bit so it increases the sensitivity of that sensor to pick up more light in the room so you can get a proper exposure. So that's the scale. The scale is the lower the number, the least sensitive. The higher the number, the more sensitive. Just remember that and you're good to go. So let's jump into some of the general rules. My first general rule is I try not to push my ISO very high. I try to shoot at the lowest ISO that I can to get a decent exposure. I never want to push it too high because that'll introduce some weird artifacts and grain and noise, and I'm not about that. I want to keep it as low as possible so I can get the cleanest image that I can. Rule number 2 is look up your camera's native ISO. Every camera generally has one, and the native ISO is essentially saying, hey, this is the number that I like to function best at, so put me here and you're gonna get some clean looking footage. I'm using a Blackmagic 4K camera, and I know the native ISO is 1250. So I can shoot this whole scenario at an ISO of 800 and still get the look that I want, but it's not gonna be the cleanest look. So if I set it to 1250 and then move everything around it, I know I'm shooting at my image sensor's happy place, and I'm gonna get the best image that I possibly can. So know your native ISO, that's the happy place for your camera. Try to come in, shoot it at your camera's happy place, bend everything else around that, and you're generally gonna get a pretty good result. So that pretty much wraps up the basics of an ISO and some general rules to follow using ISO. Keep it low and shoot at your native ISO. If you follow those rules, you're gonna be great. You'll create some good looking footage. Get out there, start creating, and we'll see you in the next one.